So a lot of you have asked kind of what my post workflow is, post rendering, in Blender when I bring it over to After Effects, and I didn't really want to show it because it's not a lot of it isn't good. It's just stuff that I do. But if yeah, you're curious, you can keep watching. I do a lot of things wrong, starting with rendering PNGs, and that's I know you shouldn't. I should have figured out the multi-layer EXR had all of the passes in one go. That would have made a lot of sense, but I just haven't done that. Honestly, a lot of times I export JPEGs just because they save quick and are smaller if I'm like rendering something out for a tutorial or whatever. But in the case of most shots that I do, I render out the regular color pass, and then I'll also render out a mist pass. And I can show you how I get that set up real quick. If you're doing a mist pass, you want to make sure you have 16-bit. A lot of times you can get away with 8-bit if depending on what you're doing, but 16-bit is you're really gonna notice it later because it's in the mist pass. If you only have 8-bit, you're gonna get segmented. You're gonna see like those levels of shading, and you're gonna be trying to place something in Z space, and you'll see all the different layers. That'll make more sense in a bit here. But yeah, let's do 16. I'm going to save this as demo shot. And it says demo shot color. Woo! And let's open up the compositor. So the way you set up a mist pass in Blender, and I know there's ways to do depth passes. This is just the way that I've done it, which is probably reasonably naughty. Let's see. I think I turned off extras here. Where's the camera? Oh, there it is. Okay. So with camera selected, we're gonna set up our mist pass first, which means you have to be in cycles, I believe. And we're gonna go down to view layers and check mist, and now it's activated, which will give us the in the world settings, it'll give us our new tab for mist pass. But we won't be able to see what the controls are until we go to camera and open up viewport display and check mist. Then we get to see the limits, and we can dial it in for basically whatever range we want, which in this case that covers the whole scene, so that's pretty good. And we want to change this to linear so that the segments will actually be separated along this whole thing equally. Okay, so that will give us, that sets up the mist pass. We still have to turn on the mist pass in the compositor. This is such a funky system. So here we go in the compositor, use nodes, and somewhere here it is over here. So this gives us the composite, and this composite equals this right here. So that's already set up. We're going to set up one more output. File output down here, and this will use whatever settings is here. They share settings. There might be ways to give them different settings, but creating a new folder, I think it does this automatically, but mist pass. And I don't even think it uses this file name. I think it just gives you like numbers, but alright, so drag the mist down to file output and put a color ramp on there, and that should do it. That should export the normal pass and the mist pass as two separate image sequences. Oh, why isn't there a me? There should be a me. Oh, it's all for the best, probably. Okay, so we've rendered enough of that, and this was going to be my demo, but let me I'll show you real quick. Okay, so I'm going to go to keying, renders, demo shot. All right, and here we have our color. Yeah, it's a PNG sequence. And I'm going to drag this down to this icon to make a new composition here, and there we've got that. I'm going to import the mist pass. Yeah, it makes its own folder. Drag that in. Yeah, it's a sequence of one image. Drag that over the top, and now we have our mist pass in there. I'm going to turn that off. And so what you can do with that, you can create a solid, place it under that mist pass, and say we're going to use the luminance of the mist pass as the alpha for this lower layer. And so now that's kind of cool. You can just do stuff with the mist pass. Like you could just take this and be like, all right, I'm going to crush, this and bring the back up kind of like that and just have this wall of mist right there that can set to screen or something like that. But a lot of times mist is not actually like the screening blend mode isn't actually the best one. That's kind of an additive one, and a lot of times you want the mist to actually be there without just being an additive thing on top. So that's why I rarely use the mist pass directly. I'll always just kind of use something like this and say use the Luma Matte, and then I jump over here and I'll put in my levels. You can kind of dial it in, kind of like that. And so that can be cool for adding a little bit of a mist pass. Something else that I'll do a lot is I'll apply it to an adjustment layer. If you have mist or a foggy day, things further away are a little bit blurry and a little bit desaturated just because of all the diffusion from the moisture in the air. And so you can do that by, let's just blur it a bit. Yeah. And then I'm going to, and again, none of this works particularly well, but you put all of it together kind of subtle and it works all right. I'm going to do the exact same thing here. The adjustment layer now uses the Luma Matte, and you can see it just kind of, further away it gets, just a little bit more ambiguously blurred it is. And you want to keep that one kind of subtle. I do this stupid thing where I'll just apply a lot of different diffusions and blurs and glows, and then at the end I'll add some grain and sharpen everything back up to kind of bring it back. And just something about that, it just kind of makes these little bits, instead of looking, like that, just kind of starts to soften them up, because there's that digital render look that, I don't know, I came up with some things 7 years ago, and I'm still doing the same stuff. So yeah, what this lets you do is this actually lets you sculpt things. So then we can go here and we can make, a mask that's just kind of here in the background. Get to be like, yeah, there's just sort of a creepy, misty zone back here. And that lets you, this gives you a lot of power over the composition. So this render I did, and I hated it. I worked days on it, and I was like, oh, this will render so good. And I looked at it, and it's just a big mess. There's no particular composition or anything. And so I worked like crazy on it, and I got this, which, you can say it looks a little bit overly composited, and I would not disagree. But at least you can get a sense of kind of what's happening here. And that's because I did that exact same trick of controlling the levels on, the mist pass, and having that control, solids that are kind of stuck in here. In fact, we can go through that scene file right here. So these are like the base, and I apologize, I haven't really gone through this in a minute. Let's just kind of start at the bottom here and see what the different parts are. This is just a random solid in the background, cramped down to be like basically totally black. Dropped a sky in there. A couple city bits. So these little things called the twinklers. That's a video file I filmed down near down on the water in my town. And if I play some of this, you see it was a hot summer night, and so we're actually getting all of this atmospheric twinkle. And so if you move back, this actually looks like it could be footage. And I love dropping this stuff on top of different renders, like right here. I'll just sometimes, ooh, come back. I'll just like use this part without the water and just drop that over some part of a CG render, and suddenly all the lights feel as if they could be, a little bit alive. And so you'll see I use that a lot in this image, just because I'll just drop it everywhere. Big feathered solid here. This is a render I'd already done, but I wanted to kind of tie this shot into a previous shot, so I just dropped that back there. Another layer. I kind of split it. If these feathered solids are implying there's like a fog going on, but because I didn't have a depth pass for this, I probably had like this at 44. I was like, ooh, that's good. I like that, but I want to have it look as if it's kind of like enveloping this. So I just split that number and duplicated it and put it behind also. So this is kind of like in the middle. That's a thing I do too often. Let's see. And I have this footage of steam. I'm going to be uploading both the footage of the water, the twinkling water lights, because I use that all the time. And also, I filmed a bunch of steam footage. This is from my friend Bob Forward, who has been filming stock footage forever and releasing it over at Detonation Films, and he's got really fun stuff. But yeah, I got some I filmed specifically for like video textures. All right, and here we go. Here's that one render in there. I'm doing. What am I doing in here? Oh, this was because it was like a 4-hour render or something. It was ridiculous, and so I had my base render, and these are all just like little patches where I updated. Yeah, like I added this little guy down here. I was like, ooh, and that was just my way of keeping it so I didn't have to re-render the whole thing. Made that a pre-comp. Have some spotlight elements. I think I rendered out a train element that's riding through here. Yeah, there we go. And that's kind of the little bit of life in the scene. Like this is all just a still render because it took so long to render. So I tried to add a lot of steam and this train going, and I added an overall displacement to kind of make it feel as if maybe the scene could be, you're moving through the scene just a little bit, and I can explain that later. So this is, I don't even know. Oh, this is, I think, my mist pass. Dropping some of my mist passes in here, and just kind of muddies everything up. Wonder what past me was thinking. Okay, so this is a thing that I'll do sometimes, just to get the highlights back, is I just duplicated this overall, layer. Brought it up here, set it to add, and just crushed everything that wasn't, let's see, I'm already soloing, but if I turn this off, you can see right now it's just everything's doubled, and I just bring it up until only the highlights are left, because a lot of times on foggy days it's the highlights that really break through the fog, and so that's a fun way to add some realism. Also, if you add some glow to this, it'll make it look like it's actually glowing in the fog, which can be very useful. More steam. Check out all these twinkles. Woo! Yeah, I don't even know if I can render anymore, but let's take a look at what this does. If I get like 8 frames here and loop them. Yeah. So this, you can drop these on so easily, and it just adds this kind of randomness. Like, none of these lights really make sense right here, but a lot of these other ones kind of, even when you look close at them, you go, yeah, I guess I could kind of feel that. So, and they're going all the way over to here. Yeah, so it's just a really good way to, it's also like, I think summer nights, there's more heat distortion, and so it also gives this like subconscious feeling of it kind of being like a warm night, which can be a cool thing to be able to evoke. Just more of these, and oh yeah, and this one, so I did that thing I was talking about with the solid, where I'll use, get a Lumamat from the mist pass, but I'm applying it to the steam, so I can apply the steam back in different layers. Like here's another one. I don't know what these are. Yeah, like this one up here is just kind of being placed behind that building. And we can tweak that because here, see, I've got the threshold, and that just makes the mist pass a black and white image. And so it doesn't give you a great edge on there. There isn't any anti-aliasing, but I can slide that, and it basically gives me this cross section of where I want to be looking in Z space. So I pick that, and then I use the Lumamat for the layer below, and I can just kind of place the mist wherever I want. If the camera's moving forwards and backwards, that gets hard because the distance to the camera is changing all the time. However, somebody over in the Discord just posted their amazing solution, and they actually shared it with everybody. And I wish I remembered what their name was, but I will see if I can find that link or something, because that is such a cool tool if you're interested in that sort of workflow. More mist. Again, I'm doing everything I can to try to make this still image look like it has some life. So here's a big mist pass here. And about this point, it's probably like, why was I working in this direction? Well, that's because I probably threw some of this grading on pretty darn quick. And if I have this on here, then suddenly this all looks a lot less crazy. And so maybe I'll leave that on for a second, and I'll just kind of explain what that stuff is later. So even here, and this honestly probably looks, if I'm going for realism, a lot of times I just turn down the mist and I just like let the blacks actually be black. I just really pump the contrast, because if you're actually shooting this at night, these areas would just be, lost to black. And I've got this kind of like wash of color over the whole thing, which isn't particularly realistic, but it's the look I was going for. So but that's, yeah. Oh, so now I did another mist pass, but I masked it off a little bit, so it's just these, these mist rays coming in. You could have them going all the way into there, but they're still following the, this alpha channel defined by the mist pass, so I can like place everything further back. Just, yeah, doing everything I can here to just try to sculpt this area. And these next ones are different glows coming out of each of these cabinets here. And that's really what made the image kind of work for me. If I were to do this image again, which I might come back and kind of poke at it, I'd probably just turn all these mists down. They're all a bit much. I don't know what these. Oh, this is. I filmed some twinkling lights one time, and so they're moving around in the sky like airplanes. And there's that train back. Okay, so let's go through some of these adjustment layers really quick. First, I've got a big old Gaussian blur over the whole thing, and just blur it, repeat edge pixels, otherwise you get this dark fringe. And I just turn that way down to, yeah, in this case I have it up pretty good actually, but usually it's down around 20 or something, and that just, let's see, it softens everything. Like without it, it's like that. And so it just makes it feel as if everything, all the light is kind of bleeding into everything else. This is especially useful if there is a lot of mist in the scene, and so like the light could actually be bouncing around and doing all of that. But I do this way too much, just because it's like, I mean, like that's kind of a render, and that's kind of feels as if maybe you're looking out a window. I just like it. Yes, Lumetri color. This is a great color correction effect that comes with After Effects, and it just gives you a bunch of different controls. It's got all the regular kind of like raw tweaking stuff, and a lot of the cool stuff, the standard stuff. I'm assuming everybody can know what all of this is, but let's see, down here in color wheels, they let you change the look of stuff in kind of fun ways. Like change the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. And somewhere they've got, let's see, this effect still actually confuses me a little bit. HSL secondary. It lets you was that not it? Oh well, it lets you tweak specific colors too. And in fact, if you don't know what about it already, I can show you selective color. Selective color. Where is it? I'm looking right at it. Okay, there we go. You can pick a certain color that you're into. What color is this? Is this like cyan or? Let's pick, yeah, yellows. And you get to just dial in the values of just those yellows, and that's a cool thing to be able to do. And you can get some really interesting, like I kind of like that better, but I would. Okay, turning that off. Displacement. I'm using a displacement map, and I'm using the depth pass as the input for the displacement, which means it's going to, the further away something is, the less it's going to be displaced, and the closer something is, the more it's going to be displaced, which is parallax, which is how you can, let me see if I can do like a really ham-fisted. Is that working? Well, and it doesn't even seem to be doing good right now. So I think it lost its input. No? Anyways, that's a thing you can do sometimes that right now doesn't seem to be working all that well. A lot of times I'll throw some film convert on there, which I guess is kind of cheating, but also for no other reason than I love their grain. It's also like a $200 like effect. It's not the cheapest. If you do a bunch of, it also kind of means you shoot in log if you're shooting on a camera, which can be kind of weird. And I kind of made a lot of my effects pipeline match my camera pipeline, which means I'm exporting out of Blender in extremely low contrast filmic look, which I don't think is the makes the most sense if you're just doing CG renders. But and this has, this lets you dial in all. I like make everything just so green. I just hate magenta so much. Seeing that looks better. Basically everything I'm doing to mess with this image just looks better. I should go back and revisit it. That can happen a lot when you're working on an image for just like a day straight. You go a little nuts. Okay, and at the end I threw in one more selective color just to dial things in a little bit more. Oh yeah, I think the sky was too green. I was like, be blue again. And this is just a one of the universe effects, and it adds too much contrast. It just kind of pops everything out. So yeah, that's basically what I do on most of my images. I'm usually doing some version of this, adding the grain and the diffusion, with the Gaussian blur down here, is a lot of it. That's too much. That is too much. So I don't know if any of that was useful, but there you go.